Level 1. Week 1. The first number. You sit on the 27th floor of a glass tower that reflects the entire city like a mirror. From the outside, it looks powerful. Inside, it feels strangely quiet. Rows of identical desks, soft white lights, the low hum of servers running behind sealed walls. Your job is simple. You review transaction logs. Every day, thousands of financial movements pass across your screen. Investment transfers, consulting fees, charitable grants, infrastructure loans, numbers, endless numbers. Most of them are boring, routine, automated systems already check for fraud. Your job is just the final human verification, a formality. At least that's what they told you during training. Your access badge still feels new. Level 2 financial clearance, not powerful enough to control anything. Young just enough to see more than most employees. You scroll through the transactions one by one. $2.4 million, renewable infrastructure investment, approved. $900,000, pharmaceutical licensing payment, approved. $13 million, consulting contract between two multinational firms, approved. Your mouse clicks become mechanical. Approve, approve, approve. Then something pauses your hand. One transaction flashes yellow on the screen, flagged by the system. Amount, $48 million. Origin, a private investment foundation. Destination, a medical research charity. At first glance, nothing looks unusual. Large donations happen all the time, but something feels engineered. You open the transaction trail. 3 intermediary foundations, 2 consulting firms, 1 logistics company that technically shouldn't be involved at all. The routing path looks perfectly legal. Every document exists, every signature is valid, but the structure is too precise, too layered, too careful. You stare at the screen for a few seconds longer than normal. The compliance algorithm flagged it for a reason. You begin opening deeper audit records. Then a quiet voice appears behind you. First week, right? You turn slightly. Your supervisor stands beside your desk, calm expression, perfectly tailored suit. He glances at the screen for less than 2 seconds. He says quietly. Then he gives a small smile. Administrative noise. You hesitate. The system flagged it, you reply. He nods slowly. Yes, the system flags a lot of things. His voice remains casual, almost bored. These foundations move money constantly. Medical research, social grants, or infrastructure partnerships. He taps the edge of your desk lightly. Just mark it clean. You look back at the transaction. $48 million, passing through 4 organizations before reaching a charity. Your training manual said patterns like this could indicate financial manipulation, or influence funding, or regulatory evasion. You know what the system exists for, to stop things exactly like this. Yet no one around you seems concerned. Your supervisor's already turning away. Welcome to the real workflow, he says. Then he walks back toward his office. You stare at the screen again. The cursor blinks over 2 options. Investigate further or approve transaction. Your finger rests on the mouse. You think about the training session, the ethics modules, the lectures about transparency and accountability. And then you look around the office. No one else is paying attention. Everyone continues scrolling, approving, moving on. This place processes billions every day. 48 million barely registers. You exhale slowly. Maybe your supervisor is right. Maybe the algorithm is just cautious. Maybe the system already checked everything. You move the cursor. Click. Approved. The yellow flag disappears. The transaction vanishes into the archive like it never existed. Another number joins the flow. Another silent movement through the financial bloodstream of the world. Nothing dramatic happens, no alarms, no consequences, just the quiet hum of servers continuing their work. Later that night, you return home. Your partner is sitting on the couch watching television. How is the new job? They ask casually. You loosen your tie. Honestly, you say, it's just numbers. They laugh. Sounds boring. You smile slightly. Maybe it is. But back in the glass tower, buried inside encrypted ledgers and layered foundations, your name is now attached to something you barely noticed. A transaction. $48 million. And the system just learned something important about you. You follow instructions. Level 2, Month 4. The quiet promotion. 4 months pass. Nothing dramatic happens, no investigations, no questions about the 48 million. The system simply keeps moving. Every day, the same rhythm continues. Numbers, transfers, approvals. But something subtle begins to change. Your supervisor starts assigning you more complex transaction reviews, larger amounts, more layered structures, not random corporate payments anymore. These involve consortium funds, strategic technology investments, again, defense logistics contracts. The numbers are bigger, hundreds of millions, sometimes billions. No one explains why these files keep appearing on your desk, but you notice something. Your name is always attached to the final verification stage. One morning, an email appears in your inbox. Short, no explanation. Just a meeting time and a floor number. Level 33. You've never been above level 30 before. When the elevator opens, the hallway feels different. Quieter, no company logos, no open workspaces, just matte black doors and discrete security cameras. At the end of the corridor is a small office. No sign on the door. Inside, only 6 desks sit under dim lighting. Encrypted terminals, soundproof walls. A man you've never met greets you. "Welcome," he says calmly. "Financial analysis group." You wait for a longer explanation. It never comes. Instead, he slides a tablet across the table. "Your new clearance." You open the first file and immediately realize something. These are not normal corporate transactions. These are financial corridors. Money moving between defense contractors, private energy conglomerates, and advanced technology firms. The structures are far more complex than anything you reviewed before. Layered consulting agreements, strategic research grants, multi-stage investment vehicles. On paper, everything remains legal, but the architecture behind the transactions feels deliberate, carefully engineered. Each transfer routes through foundations, partnerships, and advisory firms before reaching its final destination. Billions move this way every week. Quietly, almost invisibly. Your job is not to stop them. Your job is to optimize them. You spend weeks analyzing the patterns, where money slows down, where regulators might notice, where structures can be simplified, or hidden better. One evening, you discover something unusual. A large defense technology payment routed through a humanitarian development fund. The structure is sloppy. The routing could attract scrutiny. You adjust it. Add 2 intermediary consulting groups. Split the transfer into smaller segments. Now it looks like routine infrastructure funding. Cleaner, invisible. You submit the revised structure. 2 days later, an envelope appears on your desk. No sender. Inside's a short note. Efficient work. Below the message is a bank transfer confirmation. An amount equal to 6 months of your salary. Now your first reaction is confusion, then realization. This isn't part of payroll. It's a thank you bonus. You sit quietly for a moment. The room around you remains silent. No one looks surprised. No one asks questions. For them, this is normal. You close the envelope slowly. Your mind searches for explanations. Maybe these operations are important. Strategic even. Governments rely on corporations. Corporations rely on financial networks. Perhaps this is just how large systems function. National interests, economic stability, things ordinary people never understand. You tell yourself these thoughts while returning to work. The numbers keep flowing. More contracts, more restructuring, more invisible pathways for money. Weeks later, at home, your partner notices something. Your paycheck increased, they say while looking at the bank statement. You hesitate for half a second, then answer calmly. Promotion, they smile. That was fast. You nod slightly. Yes, you say. It was. But inside the glass tower, something else has changed. Your silence has been measured, your decisions have been observed, and the people who control these financial networks have learned something valuable. You don't ask questions, you solve problems, which means next time they will trust you with much bigger ones. Level 3, Year 2. The table where decisions are made. 2 years pass. By now the office with no logo feels normal. Encrypted terminals, silent hallways, financial structures that move billions every week. You no longer review transactions, you design them, you understand how influence travels through money, know where regulators look, where they don't, where a payment can hide inside a research grant, or a consulting agreement, or a philanthropic foundation. Most people inside the building still believe they work in finance. You know better now. You work in influence architecture. One morning, a new message appears on your encrypted terminal. Not an email, not a calendar invite, just a location and a time. 1930, Executive Strategy Suite. You've never been invited there before. The elevator requires a different access code tonight, 2 levels above your usual clearance. When the doors open, the atmosphere feels different immediately. No corporate branding, no reception desk, just a quiet hallway leading to a single set of double doors. Inside, a long black conference table stretches across the room. 7 people sit around it. Not executives from your company, something else. You recognize a few faces instantly. A man who owns a global media network, a director from one of the largest defense logistics firms in the world, a technology billionaire whose platforms control billions of users, another man representing a massive private energy consortium. No assistants, no recording devices, just quiet conversation. One empty seat remains, yours. You sit. No one introduces themselves. They already know who you are. The meeting begins without ceremony. The tone is calm, measured, almost academic, and they speak about markets the way surgeons speak about anatomy, precise, detached. One of them slides a tablet toward the center of the table. Graphs appear on the screen. Energy prices, election funding projections, regulatory investigation timelines. Another voice speaks. There's a competitor expanding too quickly. The Energy Consortium representative nods slightly. They'll disrupt pricing models in 18 months. Someone else adds calmly, that cannot happen. No one raises their voice. No one argues. They simply discuss options, market pressure, investment withdrawal, media narratives, regulatory attention. Each strategy appears on the screen like pieces on a chessboard. Then the media chairman looks directly at you. We need financial pathways. He taps the tablet. Or 3 policy organizations, 2 independent research institutes, election influence through legal funding channels. The technology billionaire adds quietly, clean structures, no direct connections. The defense logistics director finishes the thought. And fast. The room becomes silent. Everyone is looking at you now. You understand the request immediately. They aren't asking for illegal transfers. They're asking for something more sophisticated. Financial architecture that guides money invisibly. Lobbying groups that appear independent. Research institutes that produce neutral reports. Funding that shapes policy debates without revealing its origin. It's all technically legal, but the outcome is obvious. Regulators will begin investigating the competitor. Media outlets will publish expert reports questioning their safety standards. Investors will lose confidence. Stock prices will fall. Within a year, the competitor will collapse. Thousands of workers will lose their jobs. Entire regions will lose industries, all triggered by financial structures designed in a quiet conference room. You feel something uncomfortable settle in your chest. For the first time, the scale becomes clear. You are not just observing corruption, you are being asked to engineer it. Your mind searches for justification. Maybe they believe this protects economic stability. Maybe the competitor really is dangerous. Maybe this is simply how power works at the highest level. But deep down, you already know the truth. This is control, and you're the one designing the control system. You look back at the tablet. 5 financial structures, 5 pathways, each one simple for you to create. Your fingers begin outlining the architecture, layered consulting agreements, or international foundations, policy advisory funds, everything routed through legal corridors, invisible, efficient, perfect. No one interrupts you while you work. When you finish, the media chairman studies the design, then he nods slowly. Excellent. The meeting ends 15 minutes later. No signatures, no documents, just quiet understanding. 3 months later, the effects begin appearing in the news. Investigations, policy debates, critical research reports, investors pulling away from the competitor, energy markets shifting, factories closing, thousands of workers losing their jobs across several regions. You watch the headlines from your office, calmly. The system you designed is functioning perfectly. At home that night, your partner notices something. You've been traveling a lot lately, they say. You loosen your tie slowly. Her own work projects, you answer. They ask where. You pause, then give a vague answer. Different cities. They accept it. But you notice something changing. Your explanations are becoming shorter, more careful, more incomplete. Back in the glass tower, the people above you have reached their own conclusion. You understand how power flows. You can shape markets. You can redirect billions. You can collapse entire industries without anyone ever seeing your name. And that makes you far more valuable than they expected, which means the next step will be bigger, much bigger. Level 4, Year 5. The room without windows. 5 years later, your office no longer has windows. There is no city view anymore. No sunlight, just quiet walls lined with soundproof panels. 3 encrypted terminals glow in the dark room. Beside them sit 3 secure phones, each one connected to a different network. One for corporate channels, one for private investment groups, one for communications that technically do not exist. The office door has no label, no department name, no employee listing. If someone searched the company directory, they wouldn't find your position at all, because you no longer belong to any department. You belong to the system itself. By now, your job has completely changed. You don't review transactions anymore. You don't restructure payments. You design financial corridors, entire pathways through which money moves between powerful institutions, intelligence contractors, private military suppliers, pharmaceutical monopolies, global investment funds controlling trillions in assets, each of them connected by invisible financial architecture. Your architecture. You know exactly where the money travels, where it slows down, where it must disappear. Some corridors influence regulatory investigations. Others quietly fund research institutes that shape public policy. Or a few redirect massive investments into technologies that will dominate markets years from now. Everything moves quietly, nothing appears illegal, and that is exactly the point. One evening, one of the secure phones lights up. You answer. A familiar executive voice speaks calmly. There's an opportunity for you. You listen. One of the offshore holding groups, a financial structure controlling dozens of shell companies, is expanding ownership. Normally, executives receive salaries, bonuses, consulting contracts. But this offer is different. Equity, the voice says. Ownership, not payment. If you accept, you won't just manage the system anymore. You will own a piece of it, a hidden share inside a network of corporations worth billions. Money that moves quietly through investment funds, infrastructure projects, and global markets. Untouchable, invisible, permanent. You sit silently for a moment after the call ends. Your reflection stares back at you from the dark terminal screen. Years ago, you believed the system had rules, regulators, watchdogs, oversight committees. Now you understand something different. The line between legality and influence was never solid. It was just flexible. And somewhere along the way, that line disappeared completely. There's no system left to protect, only the people who control it. You open the document attached to the offer. Ownership percentage, transfer structure, offshore jurisdiction. It takes less than 5 minutes to approve. Click. You are no longer an employee. You are now part of the machine. Weeks pass. Your responsibilities expand again. Financial corridors begin linking industries that were never supposed to connect. Their private defense logistics funding political research groups, pharmaceutical investment funds influencing regulatory timelines, technology conglomerates shaping public narratives through media networks. Your job is simply to make sure the connections remain invisible, and they always do, because the architecture you built hides everything behind layers of legality, grants, partnerships, consulting structures, investment vehicles. To the outside world, everything appears normal. Markets rise and fall, policies change, companies succeed or collapse. No one ever sees the hidden framework guiding those outcomes, except you. Late one night, you finally leave the office. The city outside looks different now, more distant, less real. When you arrive home, the apartment lights are still on. Your partner is sitting at the kitchen table. You're working again, they say quietly. You nod. There's nothing else to explain. They study your face for a moment. You barely sleep anymore. You shrug slightly. Work is busy. They wait for more details. You don't offer any because there's nothing you can say. How do you explain that the decisions made inside your windowless office influence billions of dollars, entire industries, sometimes even governments? So you say nothing. Eventually they stand up and walk toward the bedroom. The silence between you feels heavier than any argument. Back in your office the next morning, the terminals are already filled with new requests. More financial structures, more influence networks, more decisions shaping markets that millions of people depend on. You open the first file, a public health regulatory delay, a defense procurement shift, a strategic energy investment, 3 industries, 1 financial corridor. You begin designing it, because by now, the people who control the system understand something clearly. You no longer hesitate, you no longer question, and the architecture you build has become far too important to stop. Level 5, Year 11. The machine 11 years have passed. The glass tower where you started is no longer your workplace. Your office moves now. Cities change every week. Airports, private terminals, conference suites that never appear on public booking records. Tonight you are somewhere above the ocean, inside a private aircraft conference cabin. The lights are dim. A large screen covers one wall. On it, dozens of financial dashboards update in real time. Commodity markets, energy futures, defense procurement flows, healthcare licensing negotiations, political funding timelines. The numbers move constantly. Billions shifting every few seconds. From the outside, the world looks chaotic. Markets rise and fall. Governments debate policies. Companies succeed or collapse. But from this cabin, the patterns are visible, because the invisible channels connecting those systems are the ones you built. A quiet alert appears on the dashboard. A conflict between 2 regions has escalated overnight. Energy supply chains are already reacting. Oil futures spike. Logistics companies begin rerouting shipments. Investment funds move capital into defensive manufacturers. You study the numbers calmly. Your job isn't to stop these movements. Your job is to guide them. A small adjustment here, a funding delay there. Within minutes, billions begin flowing through the corridors you designed years ago. Private military suppliers receive emergency contracts. Energy companies restructure supply routes. Investment funds reposition capital to profit from the instability. The entire market shifts slightly, invisible, precise, or efficient. On another screen, healthcare negotiations appear. A pharmaceutical monopoly is about to secure a patent extension. That single decision will influence treatment prices for millions of patients. You adjust the financial structure supporting the lobbying network behind the extension. The approval timeline moves forward by 3 months. Markets respond immediately. Stock prices surge. You watch the numbers change without emotion, because this is no longer unusual. This is just maintenance. There are no temptations left anymore. No moral debates. No offers that surprise you. You already own pieces of the system. Hidden equity across multiple offshore structures. Investment funds that generate wealth quietly every quarter. At this level, nothing is offered. Everything simply continues. Your role now is simple. Keep the machine running. A secure message appears from one of the network executives. Election cycle approaching. You open the document. Policy funding routes, research institute grants, media narrative investments. The structures will guide regulatory timelines for the next 4 years. You approve the architecture. The system absorbs the change immediately. Markets begin adjusting before the public even realizes an election is coming. You lean back slightly in the aircraft seat. Outside the window, the sky is completely black. For a moment, the cabin is silent except for the soft hum of the engines. That's when the realization appears again. The system no longer needs persuasion. And years ago, powerful people asked you to design structures. They explained their strategies, their goals. Now they don't need to. The machine already exists. All it requires is your silence, your quiet approvals, your continued presence inside the architecture. Because if you stopped tomorrow, someone else would take your seat, and the system would continue without hesitation. Your phone vibrates softly. A familiar name appears. Your child. You hesitate before answering. When you finally do, the voice on the other end sounds slightly distant. Hi. You respond carefully. Hey. There's a pause. Small talk follows. School, friends, normal things. But something feels strange, unfamiliar. You realize it has been months since you saw them in person. 2 years since your partner left. The constant travel, the secrecy, and the quiet distance that slowly grew between you. Your child laughs about something during the conversation, but the sound feels almost like it belongs to someone else's life. After a few minutes, the call ends. You place the phone back on the table. The dashboards continue updating. Wars shift markets. Medical patents shape healthcare costs. Elections redirect policy timelines. All of it flowing through the invisible financial corridors you created. Entire industries rising or collapsing depending on which pathways you approve. From 30,000 feet above the world, the machine looks flawless, efficient, precise, unstoppable, and somewhere inside that system, the person you used to be has become almost impossible to find. Final level. Years later. The silence after power years pass. The aircraft flights stop. The encrypted terminals disappear. The secure phones are gone. Your life becomes quiet again. You live now in a modest house far from the towers, conference suites, and hidden offices where decisions once shaped entire industries. Most people who meet you believe you worked in finance, a consultant, an analyst. Nothing remarkable. You never correct them. One evening, a news broadcast plays silently on the television in your living room. Subtitles crawl across the bottom of the screen. A public investigation has begun. Government committees, economic experts, journalists debating the causes behind a series of massive market failures, energy collapses, healthcare price crises, bankrupt industries. The commentators speak with confidence. They analyze regulatory mistakes, poor policy decisions, corporate greed, economic instability. Each expert proposes a different explanation. Charts appear. Historical timelines, political debates, but none of them see the real pattern. None of them understand the invisible architecture that guided those outcomes, because the financial corridors that shaped those events were never written into official reports. They were designed quietly, in encrypted terminals, in conference rooms with no logos, in private aircraft cabins above the clouds, designed by people whose names never appeared anywhere. People like you. You sit in silence while the investigation continues on screen. The politicians argue. Economists debate market theory. Journalists speculate about hidden forces behind the economic collapses. Some of them even suspect powerful networks. But suspicion is not proof, and proof was never meant to exist. Across the room, several old boxes sit stacked against the wall. Inside them are documents, old encrypted drives, financial architecture models, the quiet blueprints of influence networks that redirected billions of dollars and reshaped entire industries. You could release them. You could explain everything. How research institutes were funded, how regulatory timelines were manipulated, how industries were quietly pushed toward collapse while others were lifted to dominance. But you never opened the boxes, because you understand something now. Revealing the truth wouldn't stop the system. It would only expose one small part of it. The machine is far larger than any one person. Your phone lights up briefly on the table. A message from your child, now grown. They send a link to an article about the investigation. Sure, crazy how governments and corporations failed so badly back then. You read the message slowly. Then you look back at the television. The experts continue debating the collapse. Policy mistakes, market instability, corporate corruption. Your child believes those explanations. They believe the system simply failed. They will probably teach their children the same story one day, and they will never know something much darker. The failures weren't accidents. They were engineered outcomes, quietly designed inside financial pathways you helped build. For a long time, you believed you were just processing numbers, reviewing transactions, following instructions. But sitting here now, watching the investigation unfold, you understand the truth more clearly than ever. You didn't just work inside the system. Like you helped build the invisible architecture of power that guided it. Outside, the world continues normally. Markets open each morning. Governments pass new policies. Corporations expand or collapse. And somewhere, in another windowless office, inside another glass tower, a young analyst is reviewing transaction logs. Thousands of numbers moving across their screen. One of them will pause, a strange financial structure, a transfer that seems too perfect. Their supervisor will walk by. Administrative noise. The analyst will hesitate. Then they will click approve, because the system doesn't stop when one person leaves. New analysts replace the old ones. New corridors are built. New influence networks quietly form. The machine continues running just as efficiently as it always has, and the world will never see the architecture behind it, except for the few people who once helped design it. and now must live with the silence that follows.